favorite movie ever, but of course I have two lists. I have my favorite movies that are comedy and my favorite movies that are not comedy. So my favorite movie of all time, of course, is Jurassic Park. But my second favorite movie on the comedy side is Dumb and Dumber. Of course, it might float because I don't know that many people remember Monty Python and the Holy Grail, but I would count that as number one. I got to give you one line. Of course, I could probably give you the entire movie by heart, but let me get this right. Older folks, despite being slow and dangerous behind the wheel, really are worth something. So, of course, Lloyd Christmas, after he left the store with the big foam hat. So I'm going to try to say this line in the same way that Lloyd Christmas described old people. Balloons, despite being the single most ridiculous thing that's popular in training, actually do have a role. So it may surprise you that I would say that balloons have value to training process, and I'm going to tell you a story here. He became a buddy. I just knew him through social media just called a colleague, and he had his shoulder got blown up. I don't know what it was that happened, but whatever advice he was getting, this was a very, very significant reconstruction that he was going to receive. And I advised him of one of my choices in LA. He went to some other folks, also very high level. Surgery looked like he went great, and he was documenting his whole rehab process online, so you could see everything he was doing. And at some point, he started to describe that he has stalled, and it was because you're seeing everything. He's using like fives and doing really, really slow, and I don't know, I never saw him, got any kind of hands-on that, was he going really slow because the tissue was so dense, or was he just being very, very protective and conservative? And he started to ask questions online, which is how I actually originally helped him, looking for advice on how to deal with the shoulder piece. I said to him, so is all the stuff that you're doing what you show online? He said, pretty much, yeah. I said, if it's not online, you're doing it in the kind of the same way, if you will, like the same pace, the same tempo. And he said, yes. I said, okay, well, think about this. Whether you have a very, very low entry point, where let's say for an incline press, you're using 5-pound dumbbells instead of 95-pound dumbbells, no matter what you're doing, there has to be this spectrum of training fast and training slow. This isn't about the West Side Conjugate. This is just about how tissue responds and how force equals mass times acceleration. So if you're always moving really, really slow, there's certain good things that are happening. It is the correct way to train in most circumstances following any type of injury or even pain. And you will have a very, very high value for developing connective tissue, which is obviously the most important thing in that early rehab process. But as you look to transition to more performance, force equals mass times acceleration, we do need some more A. And somewhere in meters per second squared is meters per second, which is velocity/speed. I said, can you move the dumbbell a little bit faster? And he said he was trying, but he couldn't really figure that out. I said, okay, then maybe think of how we would look at speed or velocity training, not velocity-based training, but how would we look at a dynamic effort method where we're trying to use sub-maximal loads at an incredibly high rate of speed? Well, I said, what do we have that's lighter? He's like, I don't know. I said, well, what if you take a balloon? And he's like a legitimate trainer, so he wasn't really paying much attention to the sarcasm of what I was saying. So he doesn't lay on his back with one arm in Alaska, the other one in Florida, and blowing up a balloon, and somehow that solves all your autonomic nervous system problems. Oh, that's not how it goes. Okay, anyway. I said, take a balloon and just try to press it in the same movements that you're using these 5-pound dumbbells. So now the balloon weighs like, 3 ounces. And now you have very, very light weight, and you might feel the confidence to move really, really fast. And we've seen other, fun, athletic drills where we have to play tag and chase each others with balloons, because obviously as you hit it, there's that lag, and it's just the way physics work with how balloons are addressed with force. But in this case, I'm like, just keep punching the balloon as it comes back up. And you're doing like what amounts to this dynamic effort method. And I'd like do it on a floor press or do it off the bench. And if the balloon winds up going outside of your sphere, then go back and get it. And just get hundreds and hundreds of reps. It'll be boring, but if you start moving around, maybe you can get actually some conditioning out of it. But the whole idea was using a balloon to actually take advantage of the concepts and principles of the dynamic effort method, where you're using very, very light weight, even when you don't have any warranty to be using more than 5, 6, 7, 8 pounds to begin with. How do you get into these lower percentages, even if there is no compensatory acceleration? How do you use balloons as part of a shoulder rehab process? I don't see any reason why it couldn't work for the lower body as well. So I thought that was ironic, because obviously I would continue to speak very sarcastically and very negatively for blowing up balloons for your core or things of that nature. It's absolutely absurd. But using balloons for compensatory acceleration, for using balloons for some type of interesting or fun conditioning at certain times, there's something there, and not the worst thing in the world that you could be doing.